Welcome back to the Echo Classroom. If you're a cardiac sonographer, cardiology fellow, or echo student preparing for boards, this video will teach you how to interpret myocardial strain step by step. A patient comes into the echo lab with fatigue, shortness of breath. His ejection fraction is 60%. The study is reported as normal, but the patient is still symptomatic. The question is, did we miss something? Today, we're walking through a real strain study that I personally performed. All identifiers have been removed, and this is a fictionalized patient profile created for education. We're going to answer one question: why can EF be normal and the patient still be symptomatic? This is Michael. He's 56 years old, long-standing hypertension, hyperlipidemia, elevated BMI. He presents with fatigue and shortness of breath on exertion. If EF is normal, why is he symptomatic? That is the question strain helps us answer. Michael presents for echocardiographic evaluation due to progressive fatigue and dyspnea. The echo results come back with left ventricular size is normal, mild concentric LVH, which we would expect in someone with long-standing hypertension. EF is 60%. No major valvular abnormalities. If we stopped here, that would be reported as normal systolic function. But we're not stopping here. Let's take a look at the tissue Doppler. Septal E' is 6 centimeters per second. That is reduced. Average E to E' is 15, which suggests elevated filling pressures. So now we have evidence of diastolic dysfunction, but this is purely diastolic. Or is there systolic involvement that EF isn't showing us? This is where strain enters. So now let's talk about acquiring reliable strain. Before we interpret any strain values, we first verify the acquisition. We confirm that the apical views are true apicals with no foreshortening and that the frame rate is adequate, typically around 60 to 80 frames per second. Remember this key principle: strain is only as good as your apicals. If the apex is cut off, the GLS will be wrong. In this case, the study was performed on a GE Vivid system using automated strain analysis. After selecting the correct apical views, the mitral annulus points and the apex are marked. Once those landmarks are placed, the software automatically generates the endocardial contour and tracks myocardial motion throughout the cardiac cycle. But here's the critical point. Just because the machine produces a number does not mean the measurement is correct. The sonographer must always verify the tracking. We check that the endocardial border follows the true myocardium, that the region of interest includes the myocardial wall without extending outside of it, that the frame rate is adequate, and that there is no apical foreshortening. So remember this concept. Strain acquisition is automated, but strain verification and interpretation are the sonographer's responsibility. Now let's talk about how to read a normal strain GLS Bullseye map. Before we interpret Michael's strain map, let's first understand what a normal strain bullseye looks like. So, what this image is a left ventricular global longitudinal strain bullseye, also called a 17-segment polar map. It summarizes how each region of the left ventricle contracts during systole. The heart is essentially unfolded into a flat circular map, as if we're looking from the apex down towards the base. In the center, we have the apex. The middle ring is the mid-ventricle, and the outer ring represents the base. Each wedge represents one myocardial segment, giving us the 17-segment ASE model of the left ventricle. Now let's talk about Michael's results. Global longitudinal strain is -15. Normal is roughly -18 to -22, so this is abnormal. EF is 60%, GLS is reduced. This is where most people miss early dysfunction. This is subclinical systolic impairment. Let's look at Michael's 4-chamber tracking. Strain measures myocardial deformation, or how much the muscle fiber is shortened during contraction. For example, if a myocardial fiber shortens from 10 centimeters to 8 centimeters, the strain would be 8 minus 10 divided by 10, which will become negative 20% because ultimately the machine will multiply that by 100 to get the percentage. This value is negative because the myocardium shortens during systole. Now, in clinical practice, you don't calculate this yourself. The strain software automatically performs this calculation for every segment of the ventricle. The example simply helps us understand what the machine is measuring. Now, let's look at Michael's case. In the apical 4-chamber view, his strain is negative 13.8%, which is reduced. This tells us the longitudinal fibers are not shortening normally. On the strain curves, each colored line represents a different myocardial segment. The vertical line marks the aortic valve closure, which represents the end of systole. Under normal conditions, peak strain should occur at or just before the aortic valve closure. Now, notice something important. Some segments reach negative 23%, which is normal, but others are only negative 9 or negative 10. That variation indicates regional dysfunction, and this highlights an important difference between EF and strain. Ejection fraction averages everything. Strain shows you which fibers are struggling. Let's take a look at the apical 2-chamber tracking. Strain must be reproducible. GLS is calculated from 3 apical views: apical 4-chamber, apical 2-chamber, and apical 3-chamber, also known as apical long axis. In the apical 2-chamber view, strain is negative 13.1. That confirms the abnormal value we already saw in the apical 4-chamber view. When multiple views agree, our confidence in measurement increases. This map shows how each region of the left ventricle contracts. The center represents the apex, and the outer parts represent the basal segments. Notice the basal segments are less negative. In hypertension, the heart pumps against high pressure, aka increased afterload. The longitudinal subendocardial fibers are the most sensitive to wall stress. They are the first fibers to fail. That is why strain decreases before ejection fraction changes. Let's take a look at the apical long axis or the apical 3-chamber. This view shows negative 17.1%, stronger than the other two. Why? Not all walls are affected equally. Strain varies due to regional disease, loading conditions, imaging plane differences, and tracking variability. That's why GLS is averaged. Now let's talk about how we will integrate Michael's results. When averaged, Michael's GLS is approximately negative 14 to negative 15. Normal would be closer to negative 20. This represents early systolic dysfunction at the fiber level. EF remains preserved because circumferential fibers compensate, but longitudinal fibers are impaired. Michael's EF is 60%, but his strain is reduced. EF measures volume changes. Strain measures fiber shortening. Fiber dysfunction begins before volume dysfunction. That is why strain matters, and that is why EF alone is not enough. So let's talk about how we would interpret this. What does it all mean? EF is normal, GLS is reduced, E' is reduced. This patient has early systolic dysfunction and elevated filling pressures. Remember, GLS declines before EF. Again, GLS declines before EF. Now let's talk about Michael's actual strain. Take a look at the overall pattern of the bullseye. The strain reduction is fairly uniform across the ventricle. There isn't one specific region that suddenly drops off compared to the others. That pattern is important. If this were ischemia, which means reduced blood flow to part of the heart muscle, we would expect to see a regional pattern. In other words, one coronary territory would show significantly worse strain, while the other segments would remain relatively normal. But that is not what we see here. Instead, the bullseye shows global reduction, meaning the strain is mildly reduced throughout the ventricle. This pattern suggests diffuse myocardial dysfunction rather than a blockage affecting a single coronary artery. Given Michael's history of long-standing hypertension, this pattern is most consistent with hypertensive heart disease, where increased afterload gradually impairs the longitudinal fibers of the ventricle. Now, let's talk about how to read a myocardial strain curve. Number 1, what the graph shows. The graph shows myocardial deformation over time. Each colored line equals 1 LV segment. The dotted white line equals the average strain curve. This is used to evaluate regional and global systolic function. Number 2, understanding the axes. Horizontal axis represents time or the cardiac cycle, the start of systole, contraction, and relaxation. The vertical axis represents strain, or percentage of strain rather. 0% equals no deformation. Negative values equals myocardial shortening. The key rule to remember, downward equals systolic contraction. 3, what happens during the heartbeat? Well, let's talk about the beginning of systole. The curves move downward. The myocardium begins longitudinal shortening. So what does peak systolic strain mean? This means the most negative point of the curve. It represents the maximum contraction. So let's talk about what happens after the aortic valve closes. The curves move back upwards and ventricular relaxation begins. 4, important timing marker. So on the screen right here, you see AVC. This means the aortic valve closure. It marks the end of systole. Peak strain should occur at or near AVC. If a segment peaks after AVC, it means it's post-systolic shortening. Possible causes for these could be ischemia, regional dysfunction, or dyssynchrony. Now, let's talk about comparing modalities. This case illustrates an important principle. They don't always agree. Remember, EF measures volume, strain measures fiber shortening, Tissue Doppler measures velocity. They are not the same thing. When they disagree, strain often detects dysfunction first. Now let's talk about the clinical implications of this, or why it matters. If you rely only on EF, you miss early disease. Strain allows earlier risk stratification, therapy optimization, monitoring progression. This is not academic. This changes the management that the doctor is going to recommend. So, the final takeaway from Michael's exam. Michael's EF is normal, but his myocardium was not. If you stop at EF, you miss disease. Strain refines EF. It does not replace it. EF tells us how much blood leaves the ventricle. Strain tells us how well the myocardium actually contracts. That completes the strain lecture. Here's your reference slide. Recommendations based on ASE strain guidelines and chamber quantification standards. If you're learning echocardiography or preparing for registry exams, consider subscribing to the Echo Classroom. New teaching videos every week. Thank you so much for allowing me to help you today. I look forward to seeing you on the next one.